The year is 1934. Darkness blankets a small Berlin apartment. A radio glows in the corner. A Volksempfänger, the people's receiver. From its speaker, a voice emerges, confident, charismatic, and urgent. It doesn't appeal to reason, but to raw emotion, promising order, strength, and belonging to a nation adrift. This was not just a broadcast, it was a weapon. Nazi propaganda wasn't about facts, it was about feelings, shaping fear, hope, and rage before shaping thought. The regime understood. Emotion is the gatekeeper of reason. Before convincing someone of a lie, you must make them its necessity. The goal: create a new reality built on shared anxieties and manufactured hope. The family huddled around the radio wasn't analyzing policy, they were being swept into a story. In this story, they weren't victims of history, but heroes in waiting, held back by shadowy enemies. The voice gave them a script, transforming private pain into a public cause. This was the first step in mass manipulation. Night after night, across millions of homes, the voice spoke. It wove a tapestry of lies so vast, it became the fabric of daily life. The radio became a constant companion, a trusted friend, a stern father figure. It whispered promises in the dark and roared defiance in the public square. The sound of a new Germany was being born, a Germany where truth and fiction blurred. The real battle for Germany began not on the battlefield, but in the living room. Here, a voice from a box taught a nation what to love, what to hate, and what to fear. And so the soul of a nation was quietly, relentlessly rewritten. Propaganda doesn't start with a slogan, it starts with a feeling. Goebbels and the Nazi architects were masters of emotional engineering. They bypassed logic, speaking directly to fear, pride, anger, and the longing for belonging. Their first move: validate the nation's pain. Yes, you have been wronged. Your anger is justified. This created trust, positioning the propagandists as the only ones who truly understood. Once emotions were captured, the message was simplified. Germany's problems were not complex, but the result of a clear enemy. The German people were cast as noble, their suffering blamed on external and internal foes, especially Jews. This blueprint offered relief. It replaced confusion with clarity and doubt with righteous anger. Propaganda didn't ask people to think, it invited them to feel. It gave them a simple story and a clear enemy. Emotional alchemy turned despair into the fool's gold of national rebirth. The consequences would be catastrophic. The manipulation of feeling was the regime's most devastating weapon. To grasp Nazi propaganda's power, you must walk through post-WWI Germany. The Treaty of Versailles left a wound of humiliation and economic ruin. Hyperinflation and the Great Depression deepened the despair. Millions jobless, dignity lost. The streets filled with men who had once been proud soldiers, now desperate and broken. In this chaos, the Nazis saw opportunity. They didn't create the despair, but they expertly exploited it. Their answers were simple. Who is to blame? We know. How do we restore pride? We have a plan. The Weimar government seemed weak. The Nazis promised strength and certainty. Their message was a lifeline to a drowning nation. They vowed to tear up the hated treaty, restore order, and make Germany strong again. In a world that felt random and cruel, they offered purpose and destiny. For millions, that promise was enough. Despair became the soil in which propaganda flourished. The Nazis built a propaganda machine that saturated every corner of life. Goebbels, the master orchestrator, knew that controlling information meant controlling reality. The radio was the regime's spiritual weapon, cheap, accessible, and in every home. Families gathered to hear the Führer's voice, bypassing literacy and critical thought. Newspapers were purged, only Nazi-approved stories remained. Posters and textbooks reinforced the message: heroes and enemies, loyalty and hate. Cinema became a tool of myth-making, with films like Triumph of the Will turning politics into spectacle. Schools rewrote history and biology to fit Nazi ideology. Every medium worked in unison, grinding down doubt and manufacturing consent. The propaganda machine was total, modern, and inescapable. It made the party's voice the only voice. A lie told once is a lie. A lie told 1,000 times becomes the truth. The Nazis wielded repetition with surgical precision. Simple, emotional slogans, Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer, were hammered into daily life. Radical ideas became normal through constant exposure. Dehumanizing language, calling Jews parasites or vermin, was repeated until it felt like fact. The echo chamber was complete: radio, newspapers, schools, posters, all in sync. To question the message was to risk isolation or worse. Over time, propaganda became the lens through which reality was seen. Lies became the context for daily life. The mental prison was built, and the inmates believed they were safe inside. Propaganda thrives only when it silences all rivals. After the Reichstag fire, civil liberties vanished. Free speech, press, and assembly were crushed. Opposition newspapers were shut down, editors arrested or exiled. Book burnings became public rituals of cultural purification. Art, music, and literature deemed degenerate were banned. Only state-approved culture remained. The Weimar era's vibrant diversity was replaced by sterile conformity. With only one narrative allowed, critical thinking atrophied. People learned to self-censor, shrinking their minds to fit the regime's narrow confines. The silencing was both external and internal. The Nazi state didn't just control what people said, it shaped what they could imagine. The mind itself became a battleground. Every story needs a villain. For the Nazis, it was the Jews. Centuries of anti-Semitism were weaponized into a campaign of dehumanization. Nazi media depicted Jews as grotesque, alien, and dangerous, parasites to be exterminated, not argued with. Children's books and films like The Eternal Jew taught hatred as fact. The message: Jews were not people, but a threat to be removed. This relentless barrage forged toxic solidarity among true Germans. All anxieties, unemployment, defeat were blamed on Jews. By turning people into monsters, the unthinkable became logical. Dehumanization was the precondition for genocide. Before building death camps, the Nazis built a climate where victims were no longer seen as human. Propaganda made atrocity seem necessary. The poison seeped into every corner of society. At the heart of Nazi propaganda was not an idea, but a mythic man, Adolf Hitler. He was crafted as a messianic figure, the embodiment of Germany's will. Propaganda portrayed him as self-sacrificing, visionary, and infallible. Films and newsreels showed him as larger than life, adored by ecstatic crowds. The slogan, "Hitler is Germany, and Germany is Hitler." To believe in Hitler was to believe in the nation's future. To doubt him was betrayal. This cult of personality replaced institutions and laws with the Führer's will. Faith and obedience, not reason, were demanded. The movement became a secular religion, with Hitler as its savior. The Führer myth was propaganda's ultimate triumph, binding a nation to a single, flawed man. Nazi propaganda is more than history. It's a warning. It shows how fear and uncertainty can make monstrous lies feel like truth. The techniques, echo chambers, repetition, emotional appeals, us versus them narratives, leader myths are still with us, amplified by modern technology. The platforms have changed, but the psychology remains. The shadow of the lie stretches into our own time. The lesson: truth is not a given, but a practice. It demands critical thinking, a free press, and the courage to question. The seduction of simple answers is always a danger. The people who fell for Nazi propaganda were ordinary. Proof that anyone can be vulnerable. The fight against propaganda is never over. It must be waged in every generation and in every heart.